Hey Dean, Same Performance. Back down at the shop, getting some stuff done and making mistakes. Um, I admit it, 100%. On the 33, we left off at like running the fuel line and getting the wiring done and stuff. And I had ordered the fittings for the fuel pump and the dual feed line on the carburetors. And kind of in a rush, whoops, they're in here. I ordered half-inch MPT by a dash 6. I ordered 3 of them, one for each side of the pump, one for the fuel line adapter. Well, instead of actually checking, I just assumed that they were half-inch. Well, they are not. They are 3/8 MPT. All 3 of them need to be 3/8 MPT. So I screwed up there, but I did reorder the new fittings, so hopefully they come in pretty soon on that. I did get the heat sleeve for the starter wires, and I put a piece of real good double insulated glue style heat shrink tube over the positive wire. I put a nice long piece. That burn was somewhere right in here, so I put a real long piece on it to keep that sheathing from being exposed, maybe burn through the wire or something like that, keep it from shorting out. But what I did do was I took the tank and I put the sending unit back together, the original one, and I welded that hole they had drilled. I welded it shut and then ground it back down flat. Put that back in the tank. Put a little RTV around the tank and the top of the gasket where the sending unit is to help seal that up, because they had 3 screws holding the sending unit, 3 out of the 5. So I drilled and tapped the sending unit in the tank, the little nut ring that they put in there where the holes are threaded. So I just drilled and tapped them, the screws that I had here, real small Allen head screws, and I'll put a picture right here. Set that back in the tank. Got the float clock to where it's at the back of the tank and not hitting the pickup tube. And then I got the dash 6 line. I put a 90 on the tank fitting that I had welded in, and then I threw the hose up above the I can't get under here, above the frame support cross member. Yeah, the cross member where the tank bolts back in. So I have that line here, and it's not tight on the top of the tank yet, but I don't know if you could see it in there. You can actually reach your hand up in there, and with a wrench, I'll tighten it down once I figure out exactly where I want the line. I also took the sending unit wires, put new terminal ends on them with some heat shrink tube, put a little piece of braid, and then I did the heat shrink tube on the end of the wire loom, on both ends of the wire loom, just to hold it on there, and then left the wires here. Probably going to do a plug here so that if you ever need to drop the tank, I'll leave enough hose that you can drop it down enough, unscrew it. But this you'll be able to unplug and not have to worry about, like when I took it down, this was the wire that went to the top of the sending unit, so it came off and it was tight, and it ended up plucking out of the terminal before I can even see the sending unit to get the nut undone. So I'll end up, and the way this wire is connected is pretty neat. They actually took one of those, like, splice in a third wire and used it as a butt connector. You can see the wires offset from each other, so they used it in a sense of being a butt connector. And this blue is for a much smaller gauge wire. So what ends up happening is the little metal piece in here, let's see if we can get it undone. Yeah, you can see the metal piece That little metal piece right there is what you stab down. It's got 2 grooves, very small grooves. But what'll end up happening is if you try and stab it through too thick of a gauge of wire, it actually ends up cutting. And it's so tight right now, I can't even peel this off. But it ends up cutting the copper strands. So instead of having, hypothetically, say 20 strands of wire, there, and got it off. So you can see on here how deep it cuts into that wire. So I can almost guarantee you it cut a bunch of the strands of wire off. But I'll end up taking this back this way. I'll end up redoing all of these here. Crazy wires. This is the, come on now, this is the fuel pump feed here, which I'll end up connecting back to the fuel pump. But you can see how long it was, goes all the way to over here. And again, there's no need to have 3 feet of wire tucked up and set in there. It just leads for like a disaster. Like if it was to fall and lay on the exhaust and short out and all that good stuff. This is the sending unit wire, which already has a single plug on it, but I'll end up probably passing them through to over here to keep them farther away from the exhaust, and I'll come along with the rest of the wires that were already there for the tail lights and blinkers and all that. I'll come along over here, put the plug somewhere right here, and then the fuel pump will be hung probably somewhere right here off of this cross member, to keep it away from getting hit by the pumpkin anymore. And I'll probably end up putting a plug on that as well. If you ever want to take the fuel pump off, you don't have to cut it, you just unplug it. I'll tie, this is the sending unit ground, which you can see they had it sitting for the tank strap bolt. They had it sitting in there on that, which is, that's not a good ground for your fuel pump or your sending unit. And the fuel pump was grounded to the bracket that was here. So I'll end up tracing, a decent sized wire, probably a 12 gauge or a 14 gauge or something. I'll end up feeding it all the way up to the front and come over to the battery that sits right up there. You can kind of see there's an Optima battery, but I'll come out and bring that in. I'll either do it straight to the battery or do like one of those kind of like a terminal block where it's got 2 posts and you can put the battery cable on one side and put heavy gauge on the other side with terminal ends. So I'll end up redoing that, getting a good ground going across there. Then that will be the ground for the fuel pump and the sending unit. All in one shot, it'll be done. So that's pretty much what I got done today. Kind of calling it an early day. Oh, don't bang your head. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much where I'm at right now with this. I still have to repair the radiator. The door drops a little bit. The window has some play in it. I have those little things I could do, but still waiting on the coil springs, which frustrates me a little bit. That when you buy something like that, they don't tell you up front that certain parts are on back order, and maybe give you an option to order coil springs from somebody else. I did not know. They did not tell me that the coil springs were on back order. I didn't know until I got the kit and called them, and it's not that big of a deal. It's not something I needed right away. But they, what they had told me was they were about a week away. Week later, I call back, make sure they, that they got them. The guy says, I believe we got them. They're on the truck. They have to unload the truck, get them on the shelf, and then get them back out to me. Fine. Okay, cool. Should have them in about a week? Yep. No. Week later, week and a half later, I call back and I get the same exact answer that the two trucks are still sitting there loaded. They haven't unloaded them. So supposedly my coil springs, if they're on the truck, they're not sure if they're on the truck, but if they're on the truck, then they'll get the coil springs out to me. So it kind of frustrates me a little bit. I don't know if I'm being lied to or if that's just the case at hand that, being that the times are a little bit crazy, they have less workers, whatever the case may be honest with me, tell me the truth, tell me I'm not getting my coil springs for a month. So it frustrates me. That's the bottom line. So I can't even get the rest of the kit kind of mocked up in there and set the car on the ground and see if the ride height's going to be right. I can't do any of that. The motor's still at the machine shop. Hopefully he's going to get that going soon. Hopefully we can get that back, because also waiting on welding everything in, I want to set the motor back in, make sure that the balancer doesn't hit the rack and pinion. I don't believe it will, but I want to make sure, because welding that cross member in, once it's welded in, it's kind of a done deal at that point. There's not really a way you would be able to cut that back out to adjust or change the cross member. So we're waiting and waiting and waiting, but that's okay. It gives me time to do stuff at the house that needs to be done, and work on the Mustang or maybe the S10. Tidy up a few little things that I have to tidy up. But we have other projects and stuff. We have, like, this piece here. This is for an aerial company that we do a lot of projects for, which I might start making some videos for those types of things that we do, because we do a lot of stuff that go into the theme parks down here, through another company. But so we're busy, but I'd like to get done with the things I've started. I hate leaving things undone, but it is what it is. And so we'll just keep moving forward, right? But that's kind of it for this video on the 33. There's not much I could do right now without the fittings that I screwed up, ordered wrong, and without the motor and the parts that I need. There's not a whole lot I could do with it. Maybe fix the door and the window, do a quick video on that, because that's kind of a neat setup how these cars were back in the day. But that's kind of it for now. Remember, click the like, subscribe, the bell to notify you of new videos coming out. Leave a comment. We really, really appreciate it. So that's it for now. Have a good day. Be safe. Thanks for watching.